be surround yourselves with experts. So the banks are going to insist that you use an expert lawyer and an expert accountant. You might have your family accountant or your best mate's an accountant, but if they're not specialists, the banks are going to ask for you to go away and get another report done. Using a specialist, they're going to know what the banks are prepared to do. They're going to know that just as a matter of course in their day-to-day. So they don't need to go and research that. They don't need to go and find out. They'll know straight away. They'll know the traps.
So, Paul Grant from Phipps Finance, thank you for joining me today. Obviously, you're a household name in the accommodation industry and you've been finance brokering for a long time. Give us a bit of a background of how you got into the industry and why you're sort of a leader.
Thanks, mate. Very good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having so long.
Yeah.
Very nice to be here. Yeah, my journey management rights started about 15 years ago. So prior to that, mate, I actually did my study and became an accountant. I was a chartered accountant for the best part of 10 years.
You're right.
Not very exciting, pretty boring. Wasn't very good at it. So
you have to be smart, right?
Well, I think that was my failure. So, mate, I took the leap into banking around the GFC. So started a job in Suncorp as the management rights specialist up on the sunny coast.
Yep.
Didn't know much about management rights or banking for that matter and sort of cut my teeth during that period.
Yep.
Worked there for 3 or 4 years and during that tenure had the chance to meet Mike from Mike Phipps, obviously. Mate, he'd set the business up 15 years ago, a couple of weeks ago actually. So
wow.
Business been going for 15 years. Joined him in 2013 and then been doing this for about 11 and a half years since.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're certainly kicking goals in the sector, so well done to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell us a bit about the role of a finance broker. What kind of intricacies are involved in your day-to-day?
Yeah, but we like to be involved when there's a deal on from the very outset, and particularly chatting with potential buyers. And our initial chat is usually around setting their budget.
Right.
So, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? Who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself. But let's talk about your current financial position, where you want to get to, and make sure that knowing what the banks are going to be able to potentially lend to the person, help them set their budget so they don't get set on, I want to buy this $5 million business when their budget's really $1 million, $1.5 million. Saves them time, saves them potentially some money, and heartache. You fall in love with a business you can't buy.
That's it.
It's hard to unwind that once that's happened.
And for someone coming into the industry for the first time and going down that finance path, what can they expect as the service and the value adds from a specialist finance broker?
Yeah, so mate, this is all we do. So we're an accommodation specialist house. Mate, they should be able to speak to someone who obviously knows their content, knows people like yourself, can introduce them to other people within the industry. So accountants, lawyers, primarily they should be able to sit and have a genuine conversation, understanding their position, where they want to get to. Potentially they've got a business they've already found that they like the look of and add some value in terms of helping them make the decision whether they want to buy or not.
Yeah, great. And I sort of ask this question with industry experts all the time, but particularly finance brokers. Are all finance brokers the same?
No, we're not.
Right.
We're all a little bit different. Mate, there's finance brokers, obviously, that specialise in residential finance. Finance brokers that specialise in pubs, in pharmacies. As I said, mate, our specialty is management rights, anything accommodation, motels, etc.
Yeah. Key benefits. Give us a key benefit of using a specialist.
So using a specialist, they're going to know what the banks are prepared to do. They're going to know that just as a matter of course in their day-to-day. So they don't need to go and research that. They don't need to go and find out. They'll know straight away. They'll know the traps, potential traps. Maybe that's in the listing people are looking at. Maybe that's something that in their personal situation. They'll also be able to put you in touch with people that are going to be able to help you out. Yeah. And for us, we've got an office, so we've got a fully formed little mini bank, and that's our real point of difference.
Yeah.
Mate, on any deal we do, you're going to have 3 people working with your potential buyer.
Fantastic.
So myself, my colleague Josh, and at least one other person in the office.
Yeah, right.
So
and
always someone looking after you.
Yeah, and that's very important. That support network, pre, during, and post any arrangement is that support network. And give us a bit of an idea around the process of getting approvals and finance in play. Does a finance broker traditionally offer a pre-approval for a management rights, or do you just work out a borrowing capacity?
Yeah, really, really good question and a really common one. So Sadly, you can't get a pre-approval for a management rights. There's so many working parts that we need to work through as part of the purchase process that if you get something from the bank, it's going to have 1,000 conditions on it. So it's not really going to be worth the paper it's written on.
Right.
But our process is to firstly have a chat with the client, analyse their position, have a look at what they're intending on buying, and we'll pre-qualify them for that purchase. And what that means is we'll run all the numbers as though we're the bank.
Sure.
We do it all day, every day. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We'll form a view as to whether the deal works or it doesn't work or it's borderline.
Yeah.
We'll give people that feedback of where it's at. If we think it works, we'll back ourselves to get it approved, provided nothing comes out of the woodwork during the due diligence.
Sure.
As I say, we do this all day, every day. We'll back ourselves to get it done. Not an approval, not a pre-approval, but as good as you're going to get when you're buying this type of asset.
Yeah. Determining a borrowing capacity for a client. What are some of the things you're looking for to determine and see if they meet lending criteria?
Sure. So determining someone's borrowing capacity, we'll look at three things: who they are, what's their background, what are their skills. We'll then need to look at their financial capacity. So that is analysing their statement of assets and liabilities. Are they holding cash? They own property? Are they potentially going to sell a property or they want to borrow against that? Sticking those numbers down, it's not rocket science, but there's a little bit behind that. Making sure the equity side of things work. So that's one side of the equation. Probably more difficult side is then looking at the cash flows. Right. Banks will look at equity and then what they call debt service.
Sure.
A debt service, from all the income that's going to be coming in once the purchase has gone through, is that enough income to service the level of debt that's going to be outstanding?
Sure.
And that level of debt needs to be looked at, assuming interest rates are going to go up and down, given some allowance for tax, and obviously people need some money to live off too.
Yep.
So after all of that, does the deal work? Yes or no?
So if I was applying for finance, what are some of the things I could potentially prepare and come ready to sort of, answer your questions? What are some of the things I need to do and prepare for when applying for finance?
Yeah. So preparing for finance, big one. First one is know your assets and liabilities. How much cash you're going to have in the bank? Do you own a property? Get a bit of an idea of what that might be worth. Don't go out and get a valuation, but maybe scope a local market, realestate.com, what's selling, chat to a local agent. Obviously, an understanding of your debt levels. So that's all your debt, credit cards, personal loans, any equipment finance. Having a real thorough understanding of what that looks like. Never hurts to put together a bit of a CV. I'm not big on paperwork, but even just 3 or 4 dot points about who you are.
Yeah.
Who you are, why you want to buy the asset, what you think you'll be good at during the process.
And I think this is probably a very open-ended question, but in general, what are banks looking for?
Yeah, so the bank wants a perfect deal, something that's nice and easy, and then there's no such thing. So what they're then looking for us to provide is some detail about who the buyer is, some detail about what they're buying and why they're buying it, and then the numbers.
Yeah.
So the numbers is where we come in. We'll do that. That's the easy part. Then it's just packaging that up to look as good as it possibly can, and then using our market force to drive the best rates and terms we can. So we'll tender that business out to the banks. They've got to win your deal.
Yeah.
So they need to come back to us. It's a bit of a back and forth. They need to come back to us with a compelling proposition for us to then give that to the client.
Yeah, great. And I'll ask the question: variable versus fixed. Some of the benefits for both. For going for finance, having that fixed option, is that a real achievable dream, or is that something that it depends on the business and the type of economy we're working in?
Yeah, fixed variable question I get every day.
Yeah.
Look, we're not allowed to give advice on that, but I can tell you 99.9% of my clients at the moment are taking variable rates.
Right.
And the benefits that people are seeing are obviously, we think rates are at their peak at the moment, so hopefully they're going to come off in the near future. A lot of people will take variable interest rates, take interest only if it's available, but gives them the flexibility when the cash flow allows for them to pay down debt at their discretion.
Sure.
So they have a bad month, they just have to meet that interest component. If they have a good month, plough your extra dough in to reduce your debt component.
Yeah.
Fixed rates don't give you that flexibility. And if you do want to break your fixed rate, you take out a 3-year fixed rate, you want to break it after 12 months, you can be up for some hefty costs.
Yeah. Trying to take the edge off things and alleviate any headaches, from start to finish. What kind of advice would you potentially give to candidates looking to apply for finance, just to make it a streamlined process?
So organised is always best.
Yeah.
So the things we talked about earlier, detailed statement of assets and liabilities, some details about who you are. If you've got any outstanding tax debts, or you've got, you need to get your tax lodged, even getting on top of that, having a chat with your accountant, and surrounding yourself with a team of good people in terms of accountants and lawyers, and make sure that they're specialists. So by the time we get to the bank, we've just got a beautiful little package.
Yeah.
We can wrap everything up. We've already answered all the questions that are going to come, or we're ready to answer them when the bank comes to us.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll finish up by asking some wisdom from you. Give us, any applicant, 3 tips and a bit of maybe free advice from your point of view.
Yeah, mate. Tip 1, and it's not even finance related. Tip 1, when you're looking at a business, you're probably not going to find the perfect business. We call it the unicorn.
Yeah.
Obviously, have what you're looking for, and detail that out, and speak to your agent about that so they've got a good idea. But you might have to compromise on a thing here or there. So the unicorn is very rarely out there.
Yeah.
Mate, tip 2 would be surround yourselves with experts. So the banks are going to insist that you use an expert lawyer and an expert accountant. You might have your family accountant or your best mate's an accountant, but if they're not specialists, the banks are going to ask for you to go away and get another report done by a specialist. So it's going to cost you double, and it's worth the advice every day of the week.
Absolutely.
Tip 3 is be organised. There's going to be certain things that we from the finance side are going to need. We can't cut corners. We'll make it as easy as possible and we'll reduce it as much as we can. But if we ask for something, if you've got it organised and sitting there ready to go, makes your life easier as you're going through the rest of the process, and obviously makes our job easier promoting you to the lenders.
Yeah. PG, Paul Grant, thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And everything you do in the industry is well noted, and that's why we see you as an industry expert. So thank you very much.
Great, mate. Thanks for being here.
Cheers.